Welcome to Accounting High.
So there's definitely been a lot of butting heads. And this is the hardest part, being able to have that communication, finding the right way to say, hey, we can disagree on things. Let's talk about why, where we're not yelling at each other. You're not
Egos
just
are not getting in the way.
exactly.
Hi, class is in session. It's time for Shoperations at accounting. Hi, class is in session. It's time for Shoperations at accounting. Hi, kids. Hybrid teams, for Pete's sake. I'm trying to manage through screens, but I can't figure out which Zoom window's my next meeting. Well, since 2012, my firm's been in the cloud. Join us as we go deep. I'll try not to run it to the ground. We're sharing profit and loss and managing back office. The tax staff just quit. Tried to hire on LinkedIn, no luck. And scope creep, team count, CAS, automate tax, compliance, transactions, ID, and bottlenecks. Come on, ops. Scotty, wait a minute. It's my firm, dog. I know, and I said you could run it however you want.
Introducing the star of our show.
Scotty and Kyle Geers.
We're gonna have a problem here.
Oh, what's up, students? I got with me, the gears are turning. I got all the systems gears in your IT department and everything else. Kyle Geers with us. Kyle Geers, CPA. Thank you for joining me. Kyle, where are you joining me from today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Scotty. So I'm here in Los Angeles, California currently.
LA with that LA internet. Your internet's already getting choppy on me. Joining me from the West Coast with the gear icon here. I say gear because your last name is Geers, but also you're a bit of a tech guy. We met recently at Bridging the Gap conference. We started talking about how you're running your firm, how you're running your practice. You're about 3 years in. Students, you're going to learn a lot from Kyle today about how he's running his modern practice. He grew it pretty quickly, too. Him and a partner are running it. 7 employees, 1.3 on their way to 2 million. Him and a partner running fully remote. We're going to learn about Kyle's journey as a CPA through accounting, working at some of the bigger firms, and how they're doing things a little bit differently at their firm. Thanks for joining me, homie.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a good conversation. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell me how you ended up in accounting, how you ended up with the CPA letters behind your name.
Yeah. So when I started, honestly, didn't even start thinking that I wanted to go into accounting. I started college in something completely different, kind of fell into it. So took my first accounting class, maybe second year of college, and realized I actually enjoyed it. And that was like, I would say a week before the recruiting for all of the big firms and all of that fun stuff came in, right? Had to run out, buy a suit, get in there and start shaking some hands a week later. And here we are now. Got a great offer with a great firm at the time. Jumped right into doing accounting for large businesses, for large companies.
So you jumped in a suit. Why did you jump in a suit in the first place? Why did you feel like you had to go that route to begin with? You just got into accounting.
Yeah. I mean, I think when when you're getting into that big firm mindset or the organization, right, they're looking for very prim. They're looking for very proper, very professional. And needless to say, I did not have any of that.
Where'd you go to college?
Went to UCLA.
UCLA, yeah. So were you partying? Were you hanging out at the beach?
As much as possible, man. I was on the water ski team out here. So
That's fun. On the water ski team, and you end up becoming an accountant and put a suit on.
That's right.
One suit to another suit.
A little bit different, right? It's no longer business on top, party on bottom. It's all business. But yeah, absolutely. A little bit of a shift. It was a little wild.
Yeah, well, fair. And so, but were you ready for that shift? It was like, look, I'm trying to make some money. Like, I'm not going to make money water skiing. Or did you see that as a potential path too?
Never really. It was more of a hobby than anything. And I was always a numbers guy, right? So I thought I wanted to be a math major or an engineer or something like that. That changed as you went through college, and then you found accounting and economics, right? Science of numbers, science of money, pretty interesting stuff, and kind of realized that's where I wanted to go with the career. And at all these schools, they're really pushing Big Four, right? And so the automatic first step was going towards one of those larger firms. And so, yeah, having to jump into it out of nowhere. It was a little bit of a shift.
Yeah. And so you did, well, I don't know if Grant Thornton is the Big Four. It's a big firm. You did end up going there. That was the firm you ended up working for, right? That you put the suit on for?
That's right. They still have you wearing suits over there.
How did that go? you get started there, you working at an office?
Well, I worked in an office. As you're an auditor, right, you're out and about a lot. So you're going to all of the client companies. You're working in a conference room, or if they don't like you, you're working in a broom closet, right? And just different experiences with different companies. The first one that I did, I literally did have a suit. I had to go in and wear a tie, suit and tie. It was a talent agency. So, they wanted you looking prim and proper. Next one was a tech company. And actually did get to wear, jeans, button downs, things like that. So different things going on at different places, but you always had to kind of dress the part.
Dress the part, play the part. And you played the part for a little while. You were in audit for almost 5 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it for that time? Like, were you just like progressing in your career as an auditor?
Yeah, so unpopular opinion, I feel like, for a lot of folks I talk to, but I actually kind of liked the 5 years. The thing you'll find is I'm kind of a optimist about everything that we do, so I kind of applied that mindset to the 5 years and said, hey, I'm going to learn as much as I can. So not to say that it wasn't a pretty rough experience, right? You're working a lot.
How many hours did you roughly work while you were doing that?
I would say busy seasons, it was like 60 to 70. On average.
Okay.
It was lower than that. It was reasonable during the off time, but definitely busy season was a little bit heavier. I kind of took that mindset into learning everything that goes. And you see a lot of things when you're auditing a big company, right? You're seeing how taxes work. You're seeing how IT works. You're seeing how internal controls work and valuation. And so you get to see a little bit of everything. And I really enjoyed that time because you get to see what you do and you don't like. For example, not a big fan of internal controls. I could stay away from that as long as I have. But that's actually how I figured out my niche, or the thing that I really enjoy doing, more of the technical side of accounting, right? But it took those 5 years of looking at a lot of different companies, looking at a lot of different practices to figure that out. So I do actually enjoy that time that I spent there.
And your niche or niche is not very common among most CPAs or accountants. Again, this is coming from the UCLA guy, the guy who is water sports, and you've taken up technical accounting for big businesses as your niche. How's that going?
Yeah, I gotta say, I always tell people, like, I am the nerdiest of the nerdy accountants, right? Like, you are digging into some pretty technical, in-depth, complex stuff when it comes to how you account for everything under US GAAP. But for some reason, I enjoy it. Every new transaction, every new topic, it brings something that you haven't seen before. And so for me, I love that challenge.
So it sounds like you're working with a lot of larger businesses. You're doing some complex accounting, and you are basically the controller, or maybe the fractional controller for some of these larger companies. I would imagine that it takes a couple of staff people just for each client. How many clients do you guys have?
Yeah, so currently we probably have about 20 to 25 active clients at any given time. And we're able to manage that within a 40-hour work week for our people. It takes a lot. I mean, I think we've all seen those companies that are growing pretty significantly where maybe they just got a huge round of funding and they got 2 people in the accounting department, right? And it's like, somebody that's doing AR, AP, and then one other guy that's doing everything else. So yeah, they definitely need a lot of help, but we can kind of come in, plug in, and be some additional firepower to them on whatever they need. And usually it's a lot at the beginning.
It's interesting to find the way how you pivoted, because most people would have this experience as an auditor at a larger firm and take it and run in the exact opposite direction and want to do some small businesses that would near and dear to their heart, working with breweries or something, things that they were interested in, or surf shops, stuff like that. You took it in the opposite direction where you kept the heart of everything you were doing, working with these businesses and doing the most mundane things for a lot of the larger businesses, and took that and ran with it too and had a passion for it. Pretty cool. But what were you doing in your last few years? Because you weren't just doing audit for those first 5 years. You were still there for a couple more years afterwards.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah, it was great. So when I was saying that it helped me understand really what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, best believe that was not audit. I was starting to have my foot out the door, right? Like you were saying, what's the next step? It'd be great if there was an advisory practice here that did exactly what I wanted. And lo and behold, 6 months later, got this email within the firm that said, hey, we're starting up our technical accounting advisory services practice. And, it was like At the time, there was maybe like 10 people, 15 people nationally in there, but they were looking to grow. And so that was the perfect opportunity to come in and say, hey, I want to try this new thing. And I was actually their first West Coast position out here. It gave me a lot of opportunities that most folks wouldn't have at a big firm at that manager level. You got to get out there and go meet big businesses and try to sell the work, right? Or help build the team out here. So it was a really fun time between hiring and selling, but also solving all these really complex accounting challenges. It was definitely like drinking out of the fire hose, I would say, for about the 2 or 3 years that I was there. But it was great. I got really good at getting comfortable with being uncomfortable with a lot of these tricky areas.
What types of advisory services were they? Like, give me an example of something you were doing.
Yeah. So when I was auditing, right, you're going in, you're checking numbers, you're testing things. And a lot of the times the company's just not ready for that. And so the cool thing about this practice was that you're basically on the flip side of that. So now you're helping the companies get ready for those things, right? So we're helping them put together their requests that are going to come from the audit, or put together the accounting behind the transaction that they're going to have to provide, right? So it's that technical, that US GAAP, that audit prep type of work. That was what we were
taking a company that has not ever been doing that and converting them over to GAAP, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, it's first time audit firm or first time audits for a company, and sometimes they need.
So everybody's learning something at that stage, and you're literally transforming their entire accounting department from one era to another. Right?
Yeah. I always tell people you hit that point and it's the next step for your accounting function. All of a sudden it's not just 2 or 3 folks that can help out. It's your costs are going way up at that point, and you need someone to help you navigate that process.
Is it the point of no return for some of them? Can they never go back to pre-GAAP? Are these companies that are going public that would have to be GAAP forevermore?
Yeah, I mean, unless they're shutting down, those requirements are sticking around for the time being.
At what point does the company need to go GAAP?
Let's talk about small businesses really quick. You don't even need to worry about a lot of this stuff. You got your bookkeeping, you've got your taxes, and that's about as much as you need. You should be really thankful that you don't have to go down the road of US GAAP, because there's a lot behind it. Now, let's say that you start growing pretty significantly, and let's say you want to raise more funding, right? Let's say I want, tens of millions of dollars of debt or equity. To get that much money, that comes from some pretty large investors or lenders, right? And they have some pretty rigorous standards, some requirements to say, you know what, now you need to account for your books under US GAAP, or you need to get audited. And that's usually the point. So I'd say, like, as you're hitting that point where you're bringing on tens of millions of dollars of funding, usually that's maybe a Series B or a Series C for these companies, that's really where you're starting to hit that point. That's where that trigger starts to come into play.
Okay. So now this got you to working with a lot of these companies. Could be working closely with some of the founders there and some of these companies too. So did that get you the bug to want to potentially start your own thing?
I think I've always had that bug. My mom and my dad were both entrepreneurs. They started their own businesses, and always kind of had that bug even when I started at a large firm. Always in the back of your head, but you said, hey, I'm going to jump into this, large corporate ladder and keep going in that way. But it was always there. So I think as, we started, like you're saying, working with some of these up and comers, right? People that are solving their problems. Yeah, I think it did come out. And eventually you get to this point saying, hey, I'm doing a lot of the things that these founders or owners are doing, right? Selling, building a team, and start to ask the question, why not? Why can't I do it myself?
Yeah. And so what point did you decide to do it yourself?
I was on the partner track for a long time. I was always a go-getter, right? So I always wanted to get to that next level as fast as I could. So was always trying to do above and beyond. One of the things that I love most is the people, right? The people you work with. Going out, socializing, going to happy hours, things like that. That's an awesome time. It was actually when COVID set in, and all of a sudden that was gone, right? And so now, you had your virtual happy hours. Okay, that kind of
yeah, that got lame pretty quick.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden then it's just you and the job, right? And you start to look into where your next 15 years are going to go. And I did that and said, I don't think that's where I want to be, right? I don't want to be that partner at a large firm. It's just kind of not the experience that I like. So it was really, as soon as you kind of take away that people side of it and you really see like what's behind it, is what pushed me to say, I think I need to make a change.
And you guys weren't going back to an office at that point? Were you all working remote?
Yeah, we were very remote. I think the firm was always remote. It was crazy
Okay.
to see how easy it was to kind of switch over to fully remote at that time.
Yeah, people were going into an office as a formality because nobody wanted to let go of that beforehand. And then once they did let go of that, they let go of everything. And then you let go of your mindsets around that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you go and start your own firm because it's that easy. And look at you now, running $1 million practice. So tell me about then the decision with your partner to start a firm.
Yeah. So my partner, my co-founder, and we'd known each other for 10 plus years by that point. So we started at Grant together. He actually went off and worked his way up through a lot of private accounting departments. So he did 2 years at an audit firm and said, screw this, I'm out. And so he worked his way
He
up.
didn't
from
make
this-
it like you. He didn't push through.
It worked out though, and I'll tell you why, is because he worked his way up from a senior accountant all the way up to a director of finance, right, a controller at a lot of these startups, and all of a sudden he's got this knowledge of everything and how you do that, how you build out an accounting firm how
Yeah.
you build out
On the front end, from the startup, from the founder's side.
It was great. We got together. We get along really well. He said, hey, I've got this knowledge. And I said, well, that's awesome. I've got this knowledge over here. Right. So it was like a little bit of a yin yang thing going on where we said, I think if we did these things together and provided them to a big company or a high growth startup, we can be their one stop shop for a lot of things. And
For sure.
as soon as we had that conversation and we saw the potential, it was 6 months later and we started Zeroed In.
So did you have a few clients teed up? Was there people that he had worked with in the past?
Not really, not for the most part.
Oh.
So there was one client that as we left Grant Thornton, we left on very good terms. We didn't burn any
Sure.
bridges. But there was one company that they said, hey, we're probably not going to be able to hang on to them after you leave. Why don't you continue working with them? So we kind of had our first client out the gate,
Ooh.
enough to like pay
Yeah.
the bills basically.
Yeah, and that was part of your niche anyway, though, right? Those were the type of clients you wanted to attract more of. So how did you go about attracting more clients?
So it's been a lot of it came from reputation, referral based. We had a really good reputation, a really good relationship with my old firm. So anytime that the audit partners there came into a company, they said, hey, your books are garbage, you need help. He said, also, I know a guy that can help you out with that, right? We can't help you out because we have conflicts, but I know Kyle over here that does really good work. Check him out, have a conversation with him. And so that's how it started. That's how we probably got our first few clients. And after that, it's really just going in and building a relationship, right? We're very good at coming in and starting with the first project and finding other ways to help them out. As soon as you do get plugged in, it's an easy experience. And then this controller moves over to another company eventually, and word of mouth gets out, and all of a sudden you got a pretty solid network of potential opportunities that come in. That network just expands, right? So
Yeah. How many different tech tools are you guys working with? You got about 20 clients. Are they all using the same technology? How many different tools you guys have in your tool belt?
oh man, it runs the gambit. So we work with companies in their existing accounting systems, right? A lot of them are QuickBooks Online, but a lot of them are getting to that next step that say we need something like NetSuite or a Sage Intacct, right? So we work, I would say the vast majority of our clients are on one of those three. As for what we do, we're a Microsoft shop.
And for our students, to our listeners, your company's name is Zeroed In, and you don't even work with Xero. I didn't hear Xero is one of those.
Never have. I know you probably
You're Xero with a Z, though. You're Xero with a Z.
That's right. I'm sorry, Xero. Sorry, Xero. This is
It's all good.
We're a Microsoft shop, so we do a lot of tools.
Dynamics, are you using that as well in some instances?
We have some clients that use Dynamics, but more so even just what comes in like a 365 subscription, like their cloud subscription. They got tools like Power BI, Power Query, Power Automate, just some automation tools that come in the system. We use that for a ton of our clients. You can take a spreadsheet or a data set, crunch the numbers in there to really do a lot of the manual work for our clients. Because a lot of these big companies, they've just got tons and tons of data, right? That's like one of the scary things about these larger businesses. But if you find a really effective way to pull that data, organize that data, spit it out the right way, those are some of the automations that we use all the time for some of our clients.
Wow. So really it's the power of what we had growing up anyways. Just everything in Microsoft is now like on steroids.
Yeah.
I guess. And Copilot is covering all of it up, right? Copilot is going to be your one friend through all of this that'll kind of build it all together. Is that right?
Yeah, we haven't been using Copilot as much.
Oh,
I
okay.
think there's other things out there.
But
I think
Copilot's not like helping with Power BI or anything else like that? Or
No, I think they're still figuring themselves out, quite honestly. I think there's still
Okay.
some work there. But we do actually, and we use ChatGPT instead of Copilot for a lot of this stuff because and understanding how to use it just gets better and better with, how to use something like ChatGPT versus Copilot.
Interesting. All right. So Power BI and all the other Microsoft players or all the other Microsoft tools in this toolkit are all kind of underneath 365. Copilot is something entirely separate running that they're still trying to make part of their whole umbrella, I guess.
Yeah.
Makes
Anybody
sense.
that uses Microsoft, I would highly recommend you check out some of those Power things, Power BI, Power Query.
But let's talk about it in specifically for how you guys are leveraging this. I mean, you're using some complex accounting platforms and still needing to export a lot of the data or pulling data from other places. How are you using this data? Where is it coming in? Is it coming from the accounting systems? Is everything integrated? How's that looking?
Yeah, so sometimes I believe that QBO has an API or a tool that will help with that integration. So it'll you'll be able to pull reports as long as you have your QBO credentials. With the bigger ones, I don't think, like a NetSuite or a Sage Intacct, last I checked, they don't have that type of easy export situation. So a lot of it is figuring out the right report that you need to pull when you're exporting some of this and getting it into the system, right? So you spit out an Excel workbook or an Excel file, as soon as you've got that saved in the right place, you can pull that into Power Query or the Microsoft tools, and it'll take it from there based on the steps you give it.
Okay. And so how are you guys positioning yourselves within all of that? Are you just using the tools that are already in place? Are you creating new things for the client?
Yeah, larger companies tend to want to stick with what they have. So we generally come in and we try to make the most of what they do have, right? A lot of that time, most companies are still working on spreadsheets, right? So it's a lot of coming in and saying, okay, what's your current process? How do you put this together? A lot of the time, it's someone coming in and manually inputting it into this workbook, right? So there's a lot of opportunities to come in and bring some of that automation that can save, a person's entire week, 30, 40 hours a week of doing these reconciliations and pulling it into a format that, you can click a button and get it done in 30 minutes to an hour. Right.
So at this stage, do you have an ideal client profile or a client that you want to target because it's a lot probably for you to get one client?
You're right. So it's a lot of work going into each new client, but our ideal skill set, right? It's those companies that are going through a huge round. If they just closed on a Series B or a Series C, we'll definitely reach out and see if we know anybody at those companies, right? And have the conversation to say, hey, how's your accounting finance looking? By the way, you've got these new requirements, you've got these audits, or they've already started down that road and they've started the audit and, oh crap, we need some serious help.
How do you guys handle your capacity planning for things like this? What if you took on too many new clients at once?
Yeah, we do a ton of forecasting, a ton of resource planning to map it out, right? We've got the team making sure who knows what they're working on every week. In the coming weeks, like a pretty hefty workbook that we've got, I update that every week just to make sure that we know what that looks like and when we can bring on the next team member.
You just have that in Excel, though?
Yeah. Currently.
That's the workbook. That's where you guys are planning everything in there because you're in Microsoft has. That's awesome. How often are you looking at hiring?
For us, it's basically as soon as the team is working more than, let's say, 25, 30 hours a week.
So that's your capacity too, that barometer.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We want to have that person in before they get overwhelmed, right? So we're trying to look a month or two in advance and opening up that job rec and getting the right person in.
Have you guys hit any ceilings or any interruptions in your growth in this time frame?
Yeah, hardest part is, and I'm sure every accounting firm owner will say the same thing, right, is getting yourself out of the work. So with this very specialized work, it's hard to pass that knowledge on to the rest of the team. So it's really kind of getting all this information that's in your head and getting it into a database, right, or a knowledge base. And so that's really been what's holding us up, I would say, for the last few years, is just having the team that's able to take this and run with it. But I think we're finally getting to a point where we can overcome that barrier in the...
What is it that you're still doing and that your partner is still doing?
I tend to be more of that like partner role of coming in, being the relationship person with our clients, right? Coming in and answering the tough questions or setting the team on the path for, hey, here's how we're going to tackle this specific transaction. Now they're going off and they're executing very, very well, but you're still there, right? You're still embedded in that client service side of things. And so we're continuing to look for people that can come in and be that client service leader. And I think a lot of that's coming internally. We've got some folks that have just been learning really well, and they're taking on harder and harder roles. But for now, I'm still on that side while also handling a lot of the sales and marketing stuff. And then my partner's more of the infrastructure guy. So
Okay, what does that mean?
very tech focused, right? He's always looking for new tools that could help us out as a firm. He's running a lot of the back end of IT, right? Project management, making sure that we're doing the things that we need to. If anybody knows EOS, he's like our integrator, right? He's the person that just makes sure that everything's running smoothly day to day.
Wow. And you being the accountant, I would have thought you were the integrator. I assume now that you are the visionary.
Shocking, I know, but yeah, definitely the visionary over here.
How long have you guys been doing EOS?
So we haven't actually put it into play, but I read the book.
You just
probably 2 years
understand it.
ago.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
We're
fair,
actually in
fair.
the middle of reading Traction again, just to make sure that we've got it all figured out.
Well, and maybe this is a good time to be doing that. You're at that pivotal growth phase of you guys getting out of the picture and out of the way. And in order to truly sit on those seats, that means you got to stop being technicians and you got to clearly map out what the rest of those seats are. And maybe this is a good time to be reading that. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. So if he is the integrator and he's finding technology, what types of tech outside of Microsoft are you guys using internally?
So we've really we had to find a really good project management system. And for us, that's ClickUp. And we basically started from scratch, right? Like there wasn't a playbook that was just there and easy to use. So we've been kind of building it up from the beginning of putting together all the processes, all the checklists, how we onboard a project in that system, probably for the last year or so, I would say. And now we're getting really good at it. We're getting a lot of information there. They have a really good AI feature out there if you can compile the right information for it, where our team can go, they can ask a question to, the AI feature and basically get a download of what they need to be thinking about for this specific project or this specific topic. So we're big fans of ClickUp over here. We're power users for sure.
So everything, your lives, your workflow lives in ClickUp. And ClickUp, does it need to talk to Microsoft or does it at all? Is there communication happening within ClickUp that's being imported or exported from Microsoft?
We've been able to do some kind of back-end Zapier type automations between the two. It doesn't tend to talk super well with it, but a lot of the files that we have in Microsoft, right? All of our files, all of our stuff is in SharePoint of Microsoft. And we can usually, because it's cloud-based, we're able to copy, paste links, get in there that way.
So you come from the West Coast and you say niche and Zapier. I'm just making note of this because in other areas we usually say niche and Zapier.
I don't speak for all of us West Coasters, but that's at least how I've got it.
How do you guys handle like communication internally with the team? Are you still on Teams or are you doing it all within ClickUp?
For the most part, we've been on Teams as just kind of that real time, right? If I need to ask somebody something, I can ping them really quick, jump on a call with them. So Teams is really good for that. I would say like real time and, video conferencing type of interaction. But we've been moving more and more towards async with ClickUp. It's got some pretty handy clip recording features where you can record something on a screen. This is how I'm doing this work paper. And you can send that off to another team member. And all of a sudden, you don't need your 30-minute, meeting with them. They can take a look at it. They can get a better understanding of how to do it. And if they have questions, they can come to you in real time. But we're trying to move more and more towards that ClickUp world.
Okay. So with this remote team environment, are there team meetings or how do you guys handle some of that?
Yeah, we do two team-wide meetings every week. The first one, we call it a weekly sprint. So everybody, Monday morning gets together. We say, hey, here's how the week's looking. Here's who's working on what. Here's what we need to do for our clients. Probably like a 30, 45-minute conversation. And then at the end of the week, Friday afternoon, we try to do we call it boozy brainstorm. Doesn't have to be all that boozy, but it's a good happy hour, a good kind of cap on our wins for the week and any interesting information that we want to share.
Dope. So you guys like have a relaxed end of week, coast into the weekend kind of scenario. Any last minute things everybody can kind of get on the same page with. Oh, yeah. Cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's worked. I feel like I always worry about making sure that the team's pretty close, right? I think there's a lot of ways that you can do that. We try to get together every quarter in person just so everybody gets to know each other. But those 2 weekly meetings have done a lot for us. They've been really helpful.
Yeah, I bet. Well, you got to do something to keep everybody connected and close together. And if you do have people that are somewhat geographically close, then you can do in-person stuff. So your team, what's the way for them to grow as employees? Do you have paths for their growth?
We've put it all together, right? So we've kind of got that entire career progression matrix. We call it a matrix of what do you need to do to get to the next level, right? So our team currently is pretty, I would say, diverse in terms of roles and levels, right? We got a few directors. We got a few managers. We've got a consultant, an associate level. And so basically at every level we say, hey, here's the baseline expectations of what you should be doing. And here's also the exceeds, right? The next level. If you're starting to do these at this level, this gives us the impression that, you should be starting to get considered for a promotion. And so those rules, that's super clear to them from the beginning. I found that to be really important. We actually figured that out over a year or two to kind of provide that clarity, but we've got that all summarized in a matrix, and it's nice to have that clarity for the team.
Oh, people love that. Something that they can reach for if they want to and if they want to grow, but then also knowing what's expected of them just out the gate.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other tips for our students here at Accounting High?
Yeah, if there was one last thing that I would say, and this is for, we keep talking about how the tools are there if you want to go out and start your own firm, right? Don't get me wrong, it's a lot of work. There's a lot that goes into it. Probably the one thing that I would say is if you have someone that you can go in with, a partner, somebody that you really know and really trust, that is so helpful to start your journey as an accounting firm, is having someone that can support you, right? I feel like it would be such a different experience from me if I had just started my own firm. I don't know where we would be at this point. Just having that person, that yin to your yang, to be able to tackle things that you don't want to do, I think is so important, so critical. You may not have that person right out the gate, and that's fine. That shouldn't be what's stopping you from, going out and doing your own thing. Think about who that could be or looking for that type of person. That type of teamwork is so critical, especially at the beginning and especially at the leadership, ownership level.
So you found it through somebody that you already had a relationship with. You knew from working together, you kind of cut your teeth together and got to know each other early on. Has there been any challenges to this partnership since you started? Is it a 50-50 partnership?
Yeah, it is.
Have there been any challenges since you started?
Definitely challenges, right? I'm the optimist. We always say realist, right? He's the one that's
Oh,
poking
God, I know
holes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that can be brutal. I feel like if you don't have the right communication skills with each other. So there's definitely been a lot of butting heads, right? But I feel like as long as you're able, and this is the hardest part, right? Is being able to have that communication, finding the right way to say, hey, we can disagree on things. Let's talk about why. Let's have like a good conversation, where we're not yelling at each other. That is probably the most like we fell into it and we got really lucky that way. But having that type of method where you understand each other, you're not
Egos
just
are not getting in the way.
exactly. Yeah.
And with that clear communication and that relationship foundation, then you can get through some of the adversities that maybe other people may not get through. How about things when they have to do with money? Who is who's making those decisions on where to spend money, or who's more conservative? Are you guys running into any issues there?
We're both relatively conservative, so we've got a good cash reserve at any time, making sure that we can cover payroll for a few months, right, to get us in a good place. I would say that he's been a little bit more of the risk averse side. I'm the one that wants to jump into new things all the time, right, new investments, and we find the right middle point for that. But it's never gotten to a point where it's been tricky, right? Been contentious. It's more so, we've got that forecast, right? We can look out and we can say, hey, if we go into this, this is what it's going to look like. And cash will be a little bit tighter because of it, or maybe it won't be. But, having that look ahead, understanding how that works, I think that solves the problem so much of the time.
Cool. Do you guys have any communities you're part of or anything outside of just each other running the firm? Your echo chamber?
Yeah. Let's see. So we are part of an organization called Collective 54. It's a professional services firm that kind of just caters to people in professional services, right? It's really helpful to kind of have that peer networking. But I mean, where we met, right, Scotty, Bridging the Gap conference, things like that, where you meet a lot of like-minded people wanting to kind of change the game. I think that's so important to be connecting with folks on and trying to get to more of those.
How did you find out about Bridging the Gap? How did you find out about that?
Roman Villard. I actually had a conversation with him back in January. I said, hey, what are you going to? What's important to you? And that was top of his list, basically.
Dope.
So.
Roman's a great connector in our world here. Dope. Thanks for joining us here at Accounting High.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got a lot of our students' gears turning here.
Glad I could help.
Peace out.